Plant that seed.
Wow, that's so good. Wow, this is the Revelations Podcast.
Revelations Podcast.
I'm GM.
I'm Snotty. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year 2023. This is our first one, and we have a really amazing guest today. We're super psyched.
Yeah, we're kicking the New Year off with a bang. We got our good friend Jason Lewis here. Welcome.
Yes, a man who needs an introduction a bit, although not really, because you've had a pretty stellar career, and
I've done okay, but
I think when you mention your
ain't
name,
no Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that. Well, obviously, as far as starring in 1,000 movies, maybe not. But
I don't mean to diminish that guy's experience either.
Yeah.
Who knows what he's
let's
struggling with?
not forget the chicken suit.
Yeah, right. The chicken suit. We talked about how Brad Pitt, when he came to LA, and you might not know this story, but
I don't.
One of the very first El Pollo Locos was down mid city somewhere, and he was wearing the chicken suit.
He did a chicken suit.
I
did a squirrel suit for a car. For $100 for the day. Yeah, it was great. It was when I was a younger man, and me and I think it was a chicken as well. We ended up like slam dancing into each other. Like, yes,
it's so
high
cool.
energy.
What was the gig for?
A buddy's dad's car dealership, just to create a scene out front.
Awesome. Yeah, you got to create attention. You got to attract attention. You want to get some.
Dude,
business.
every minnow or every well starts as a minnow.
Yeah.
There is no. I mean, some people are born into incredible circumstances, but even them, they've got their own struggles because then there's the development of self.
Yes.
So,
it's interesting because I actually on Friday night I cut a reel because we cut little promo reels for Instagram and social media platforms and stuff.
Okay.
So when a guest is coming on, then I'll go cut a reel. So I
cool.
pull a lot of images and a lot of things. So I was cutting your reel.
cool.
And then I thought, okay, well, how do because we put the text on, coming to the Revelations Podcast. And I thought, okay, what are the three things that, can kind of, well, because, you're Jason Lewis. So it's not like once people see your image, they're not going to go, who is that guy? They're going to go, oh, fuck, that's, But I put international male supermodel, actor, author.
Oh, nice. Thanks.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's your introduction for today.
Oh, I love it.
International
So
male
you're not so
supermodel.
tech stupid. I don't know that I could cut together a reel that well.
Actually, I had some help. I got to be honest about that. I have a little crew that helps me do them, but they're really good. But I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you grew up in California because I'm a California kid too, born and raised in LA.
Yeah, man. I mean, not many of us left.
Yeah, no.
Not far from here, down near Long Beach.
Well, and as you know, especially when you're rolling around LA, most people
are transplants at this point.
Because this Revelation podcast is about chasing the dream, so a lot of it is predicated on, a lot of people come to LA, the Hollywood thing. We talk about this all the time, that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, just the sheer population boom in the world since you and I were kids.
Right.
I love explaining to people that this is not the California I grew up in. The California I grew up in, we could still build fires on the beach and fish off the shore, and I used to get drunk with my buddies in the dunes. And
well, I know for me, that's kind of one of the things that not makes me sad, but I think is really getting lost. Is that this state has become so uptight and so over the top with certain things that they really are tamping down on, what was once great about the Californian lifestyle. It's fading fast.
I don't disagree with that, and I think that one of the things that we grew up with here that I think is really diminished was a tolerance for each other.
Right.
I think there was a really beautiful, and again, we're talking generalization, so it's not that California wasn't without its toxicity or its assholes.
Yes.
But that there was a really accepting and open stance to the other, and and I think that's kind of in the world right now, super prevalent. But this polarization of us versus them, and it's like.
But I mean, not to get too deep, but I feel like California in particular really is a shining example of something that's what once was great is being lost because too many people are overreaching, and but that's part of the way of the world right now. It's a lot of.
I also think it's cyclical. I mean, one of the things I'd love to talk about at some point is how adversity forms us. But there's and I'm going to destroy it right now. But it's hard times make strong men. Strong men make comfortable times. Comfortable times make weak men.
Right.
You know,
And the cycle continues.
And the cycle continues.
Yeah.
And we talked about this.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of turned that into a personal philosophy of adversity creates strength. Strength creates comfort, and comfort then creates weakness. So we got to kind of design adversity into our lives. And so I think societally, that's also sort of a cyclical. This is an adversity society that we'll face, but it will also then lead to a different generation of awareness. Like the kids today, you know, people want to dog on them so hard, but man, they are having a conversation magnitudes more complex than the conversation I was having when I was a kid.
And you know, a lot of those, and we speak to this too, a lot of those conversations need to be had. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of got to be like, there's always two sides to every story, you know, and I think
at least two.
So,
And the truth is somewhere in the middle. That's what they
Exactly.
say.
And even then, it's still subjective. It's like,
Exactly.
well, that's how I see it.
So you're a California kid. You grew up, well, you were born in Newport Beach, and I spent some of my formative years in Newport Beach growing up there, and it was an amazing place to be. But I know you didn't really grow up in Newport Beach per se.
No, I didn't grow up in.
You were just
Newport.
born
I was
there.
born in a hospital there.
Okay.
Partly because again there wasn't as many hospitals around when I was
Right,
young.
right.
No, I grew up floating in between Orange County and Long Beach.
Okay, cool.
So,
A good little part of the Southern California scene.
oh, dude, I was
Yeah.
completely Southern California boy.
And is it true you went to San Diego to go to college?
I did, yeah, until I just completely ran away from all of that.
Oh, okay, cool. Did you actually finish college?
I
or
did not.
You just went and...
What did you go for?
The expected journey that
Yeah.
you're supposed to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you in a
major,
fraternity?
anything?
No, I think at the time I thought maybe something like in marine biology. I grew up with a kind of a very rigid stepfather who made me put away all the creative pursuits. And, you know, one of the things that, again, I'd love to talk about here is we get trapped sometimes in our narrative. So I didn't have that articulation of self at that point, you
Right,
know?
yeah,
like
yeah.
It wasn't something that occurred to me that I was allowed to do.
Right.
And so, but I had grown up hiding in movie theaters, and I worked at my local library. Like I knew the Dewey Decimal System. I'm a geek. Like I read every book in there, and story was always my love. And so, at that point, I had no sense of what I was going to do.
You know, it's so funny because I think now looking back on, you know, not just your career, but who you are now, people would be shocked to think, oh, Jason Lewis was a bookworm? No way.
Jason Lewis still is a bookworm.
Yeah.
I am a boring geek.
And then I think Snotty was telling me a really cool story that you told him, and I thought it was really cool because, you know, this show that Snotty came up with the concept is like, you know, telling your revelation story, your chasing the dream story. And you know, like, so for example, we had this guy named Mark Schulman, legendary rock and roll drummer, been with everybody from Cher to Guns N' Roses, everybody.
A few people, okay.
But when we had him on, he said, you know what? When I was old enough to see the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and I saw Ringo, and I knew that's exactly what I was going to do. And so his dream was like, he knew what that was all along, and he just worked his ass off, and he's that talented, and he's that good, and then what I like about your story, your
The
revelation
evolution of
story,
the dream.
is that sometimes the dream you were destined for finds you, and I feel like that's more kind of what your story is, because he was telling me the story about how you were doing construction. I don't know, it was plumbing or construction or something, and you had a friend.
I was working
was
a handful
encouraging-
of jobs. I was actually sometimes you need to trip through your circumstances for sure. I'm all about that. I definitely think, and I'll tell you the path, but I definitely think that is something that as people we should put more focus on, but also it's something that I wish we had more articulation of and room to know how to put that focus on, because there's nothing greater than finding a space where you can be in service to the world
Right.
while being in service to self. And we're so materialistically driven, and especially in our society of, you know, the having and where do we match up against others, we forget that personal journey is so important into it. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. So I'll get into how I did that, but like I have written over my computer for the writing, a good story well told helps us to articulate our lives and lets us know we're not alone. And that is why I love storytelling.
Wow, that's pretty profound.
But I got some of my best conversations I've ever had out of books.
That's awesome.
Because, you know, I feel like with the story, you don't have to defend yourself against like you and I have a conversation. I'm getting your point of view.
Right.
And I'm also getting your need to defend your point of view.
Right.
I have a conversation with the book. I'm getting the point of view that's in the book, and I'm not sitting there with the need of the author beyond what's right in front of me.
Right.
And so I don't have to protect or push back. I can be
it's not
more
a
open
choice.
to
You
it.
just have to accept
I can
it
look
for
at
what
it and go,
is.
hey.
Yeah.
But it's also, how the hell are we supposed to learn in a vacuum of our own ideas? Like, if I can't juxtapose, I only see the spectrum of colors because they're different from each other.
Right.
And so if I can't juxtapose an idea against that. But going back to what you originally said, yeah, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and the things that I were passionate about were not allowed to me.
Right.
I wasn't encouraged
I was
to it.
thinking of it in respect of your modeling career, which became this epic
that's
part of your life and pop culture and all those things that it became. But you never wanted to be a model. That
that was more of a means to an end.
That wasn't your dream. You weren't
no.
like, hey, I'm going to go be a model.
An opportunity came my way really so one of my fascinations that I did have at that age and still do is traveling. I love the idea of getting to see another culture. I think it's the best thing that anybody
I have
can
that
do.
too. I'm a gypsy at heart. I moved around and went to all these different schools.
It makes you question your own point of view, and you also get to be in somebody else's, you know? It's really easy to be absolute in your own bubble, but all of a sudden you're in somebody else's.
Diversity, you know?
Yeah.
That's what we talk about.
Yeah. So I got an opportunity to go to France to do modeling, and at that point I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Come on, like, that's not who I am."
Wait. Let's circle back to the point because he was telling me this cool story, and I love it, and it kind of also speaks to sometimes the dream finds you.
You were telling me about how your buddy had like a clean shirt. And
Absolutely.
I think that's such a
I am
cool
so
part of-
remiss, and Tim, if this somehow finds its way to you, thank you, brother. Somebody who I worked with at the time, I was this young punk kid. I didn't think or hold myself there. He had mentioned it before. He was the bartender at the place, and a really cool guy, just great energy. And he had mentioned it, and I was like,
you should be a model.
That doesn't make any sense
but I'm
to
sure
me. It's
he
not
wasn't
in my
the
worldview.
first person that had mentioned that to you.
That's been him for me.
Yeah.
He's always been pushing me, oh, you should do this. You should.
Well, yeah,
I
actually
don't
it was
see
because
myself that way,
when I was a kid, there wasn't as prevalent. Now it's more prevalent. But yeah, same thing. I didn't see myself that way. That was not I was like, who are you talking? I'm not a good-looking guy, and why would anyone want to take pictures of me? I skateboard. Shut up.
But you know what? I think that's so cool because I think, like, people would probably agree, some of the photographers or people that you work for that'll be listening or maybe hear bits and pieces of this, they'll probably go, that's what we loved about Jason. He didn't see himself as this thing. He was just being himself. And sometimes, as you know, having
I think actually it did help
world,
me.
a lot of those guys go into it going, I'm all that.
I think that actually did help me a lot because, well, first of all, I had a darkroom as a kid. So I was fascinated already with photography. I had this, again, I'm not sure, a high school teacher. Who just,
wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that's a cool
this,
thing that people
guy,
probably don't know about you.
Mr. Constantine. Mr. Constantine was one of those really cool mentor figures that comes in. Yeah. And he saw this. I went into angry kid mode.
Yeah, it happens.
And
especially if you have a shitty stepdad.
Yeah, well, it's just, he wasn't as bad as the dad. So Mr. Constantine literally, there was a girl, she was one of the older classes, and she knew I was a shit show. And she marched me over to Mr. Constantine. She already had the conversation with him. He's like, "You're going to be my TA." Oh, yeah? He's like, "Yeah, you already got an A." He's like, "Really?"
Okay.
I learned more from that guy than anybody in his class because he gave me this license and this freedom to go, "You're good, kid. I got you. And so I had a lot of fun just playing with the medium. So when I got into modeling, I still hate being in front of a picture and just sitting there. The way
You do?
yeah,
Because you were so good at, when I was putting your reel together, I'm looking at all these images and, we can kind of cut a little bit to the chase. You ended up going to Paris.
I crushed it.
And then it just blew up.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
all of a sudden you were just, and you were kind of in, like now, because, we're a few decades away from that. Now when they're looking at your era, when you were there, that is widely regarded as the greatest era of modeling in the history of the business, because it was that era where Cindy and all the girls had blown up and become these supermodels. Cindy, Naomi, you know, and they had become this thing, and the George Michael video, and everybody's talking about this new fleet of supermodels, and now they're name brands. You don't just see their pretty face, you know who they are. But there was also a group of guys, and you became one of those key guys.
Kind of blazed that trail.
Yeah.
But it was, but he also like to really look at that. It wasn't just, I mean, it was the era of the supermodel because of the super photographers too.
Yeah.
That was a time when the photography was pure artistry at that time.
That's one of the things I have on my
commerciality.
notes here. You're speaking directly to that, because I wanted to bring that up. You got to work with some of the greatest photographers of all time, but also like legends, because I was looking and I saw, wow, Avedon shot Jason Lewis, and
one of my favorite people ever. So again, I do believe that success in life comes with a little bit of serendipity.
Yes.
You have to be lucky enough to trip into these windows of either external success or personal growth, and he was, what a great serendipity.
Well,
I
and
had
also
such a good time with him.
for a lot of our listeners, you say the name Avedon, they probably might not know that name. If you say
At this point right now,
in the entertainment industry or in the fashion business, of course, he's legend and people. But let's just like get it out there. Avedon started his career in the 40s or 50s.
Yes.
Became one of the most legendary fashion photographers of all time, shooting all the covers for Vogue all the way through the 60s and 70s. Like, he literally was shooting every cover.
Yeah.
But along the way, he was also shooting Marilyn Monroe, the Beatles,
all of it. I mean,
the Brooke Shields campaign.
talk about
Calvin Klein picture?
Absolutely.
And Jason Lewis. So, dude, that's
one of my greatest possessions
amazing
is
thing.
a picture of me picking my nose signed by Dick.
That's awesome.
He was a cool dude. Like, he never lost that curiosity and the tenacity to adapt and change, even all the way to the end of his life. Again, talking about like what we were talking about earlier, everybody thinks that you start being Richard Avedon.
Right.
Richard started by, he put his camera in his pocket and
He was an
traveled
assistant for a long
across.
time.
Dude, he traveled across the U.S. and took pictures of people. Nobody was paying him to do this.
More like a journalism
miners
photographer.
and this, and he was one of the first real beautiful portrait photographers in our society who really like showed life through pictures, who showed storytelling through pictures. One of the reasons I always had fun with him, because the way I got through modeling is I was always telling a story in my head. I wasn't just standing there trying to look good in front of the camera. I made up a whole story of what is this doing, and so I was doing a little performance.
So that speaks to the actor part of you too, because that's,
he was the first person
when you're a
that told
good
me
actor,
to
you have to
quit.
think of the history of what you're.
Oh, he told you to stop that?
He was like, "Dude, what are you doing here? You should be an actor. You like storytelling."
Wow, that's
I was
amazing.
like,
Avedon told you that?
Yeah.
That's so cool. Because
Wow.
because
I didn't listen. I was like, "But I'm making money, Dick."
It's so funny.
Not right away, at least.
Because we always talk about on the podcast too, when you're chasing a dream, because this is your revelation story, and we talk about chasing dreams. But there's also these key people that come in at certain times, and it just changes your trajectory in such an amazing way. And then whatever your dream is becomes so much better and greater because of those people that were there.
It is very hard to learn in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's, there's this beautiful Ira Glass quote, and I don't know if you know who Ira Glass is. He's
I don't, actually.
radio and literary critic and just an intellectual New York guy, and I'm going to bastardize the quote, so I'm sorry. But it basically is like, we get into these creative pursuits because we have taste.
Right.
But the journey from getting into it and being able to exercise it it sucks. It's just a bitch. It's a long, arduous task. And that learning curve has to be supported by people.
Right.
It's near impossible to learn in a vacuum.
Right.
Even like, people look at like somebody like, say, Pablo Picasso, and you think most people know him for his abstractionist, but if you look at his realism,
Right.
that dude learned all the brushstrokes before he broke the rules.
Right.
And so we need guidance before we can really step into our greatness.
Right. And Avedon obviously was one of those people for you.
Dude, he was so fun. He was just so neat. Like,
Do you remember the first time you worked with him? Or
oh yeah,
what
it was like it was. For
Did you know who he was? Because
I did, because I had a fascination with photography already, but also now this was my main goal in life, and I was like, and so getting to work with a great like that is any model's dream at that point. So when I was able to, it was for the first Hugo Boss campaign.
Oh wow!
Hugo Boss had been a workwear company up to that point, and they then turned into a fashion house, and so they brought on Dick to legitimize themselves as a fashion house.
What a move! Because Hugo Boss is still Hugo Boss.
Oh yeah, they kill it. Like I mean, I actually went to their show pre-pandemic and met the head designer now, and lovely man, Ingo Wiltz.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, they're killing it. They're doing
that's
great.
Cool.
Yeah, so. Yeah, it was fun. It was a bunch of umbrellas. It was very noir-esque. But that's also why I have a.
Was that one of your first photo shoots? Because I know sometimes when you're
do a lot
of little things along the way. But
I've been in the. I was in demand at that point.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
yeah, no, I mean, first I made my bones. So you're saying you went to Paris. I literally, I got this opportunity to go to Paris. And I was still just, head up my butt and didn't really pay attention. But that was at the time of paper tickets. And so there was no rebooking. Literally you had these cards. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Like you'd have, and this is going to be hard for all you digital folks, but they had these tickets that would like be 5 levels of carbon copy, and they'd write hard on, and then there'd be these like imprints of the other stuff down below. And so your return ticket would be in there, and your outward bound ticket would be at the top, and they literally rip them off as you're progressing. And so I'd gotten this opportunity, and I hadn't really made anything. I was near broke, but I realized that talk about the stories we tell about ourselves. It was one of those epiphanies I've had in my life that I didn't know what the modeling meant to me at this point. But I knew that if I went back to my own circumstances, that I'd be relegated to the stories and expectations that were already in place.
Right.
And so I ripped the ticket up, and there was no coming back. And
wow,
it's kind of like the old saying, like burn the ships.
I burnt my ship.
You burnt your ship.
I burned my ship, and I was like, oh. And it was rough. I mean, I was scrounging and begging and borrowing, and I'm sorry, Paris, stealing.
And I don't think Paris was ever affordable to anybody.
No, well, it was better then because the dollar was stronger. They hadn't invented the euro yet. But I used to like.
Saying you were stealing baguettes.
Oh, dude, I had a system.
Awesome. It's so funny because we also talk about how, like he said, burning ships. We talk about the courage it takes sometimes. So at that point, you're like, okay, now I am going to chase this dream because I'm here and
kinda. I mean, a little bit of starving, like he was saying. I reached a point where.
Isn't that great though? Like I feel like some of my favorite times looking back on life is when I had nothing and was just struggling.
Well, that's what we're at the top with the adversity creates strength, and we've gotten to like. I think it's wonderful. I try now to embrace discomfort instead of avoid it, because we have this sensibility that like get life more comfortable but dude, you stop taking the stairs and you stop being able to take the stairs.
Wow, that's actually true because
And so, yeah, like when you look back at those moments, like I can tell the story you were bringing up. I would steal baguettes, and then I would go to an outside cafe and take their pot of mustard and smear some mustard on it real quick.
That's awesome.
And there were weeks that was all I ate.
Boy, it's so funny because you got to do what you got to do to survive at that point, right?
But now I look back at those moments romantically. I don't remember being uncomfortable. I don't remember the hell of it. But without that hell, without that adversity, I wouldn't have been so driven to create a better circumstance in my
So when
situation.
you got to Paris, before you became in demand, because I was watching an interview that you did, because I do a little bit of research before we do these.
Uh-oh.
And it was a really cool thing that you said. You said a really cool thing, and it struck me, which because I think it still speaks to who you are today. You said, when I got there, I wasn't trying to compete with all these guys. There was a million beautiful looking guys, but I wasn't trying to compete with that. I just was bringing what I'm bringing to the party, and that's what you get. And I think that was part of why you kind of rose above, if you will.
I don't disagree, and I think that, look, journey of life is not linear. I think that any time where I've really misstepped, it's when I've forgotten that about self.
Right.
We get dragged into the supposed to be, should be's, have to be's of life, and yet that isn't where you're going to excel.
Right.
Especially in a day and age where everybody's like so broadcasty with our accomplishments. Like Snods. Snods is a beautiful musician. I am not.
Right.
So, I can play a really shitty guitar. And
actually, when you're on a date, that goes a long way. Right? That guitar.
But like even that, sometimes success isn't about what you need to do; it's about what you need not to do. And so I actually haven't really touched my guitar in a few years because I decided if I wanted to really progress my writing, I need to go all in on it.
Right.
And that is like that was a question of, well, why am I playing guitar as a hobby? I'm not passionate about it.
Right.
It's this identity thing that everybody should know how to play guitar.
Well, and again, looks good when you got a date.
Yes,
pull out the guitar.
yes, but that is the should be, have to be, or supposed to be, right? Like you're doing it now for some external validation instead of finding that.
It's a guitar. I thought you had to pull something else out. I've been doing it wrong this whole time.
Damn it.
What are you pulling out, and is there consent?
I know, right? Wait, circling back a little bit.
He's like, just a joint, guy.
Because I wanted to ask you this one thing because we talk about those pivotal people, and so you get to Paris, you start to become in demand, but there's a lot of guys that were already there that were established. Was there anybody that was really cool to you and said, hey, you know what, I'm going to take you under my wing, I'm going to help you along the way, because I know you became part of this pack of super male models. One of them was your good friend Mark Van der Lee, another guy named Alex
Lundquist.
Right, and you guys kind of became this trio where they shot you guys a lot together. You did covers together. Were any of those guys the ones that went, "Hey, Jason, come on in"? Like,
no, I was that guy. Mark and I actually were that guy. So the industry at the time was really, there wasn't as much space for men, first of all,
right?
But also, they call them bookers, and that's what I was feeling. Personally, I was like, you're not negotiating anything. You're just picking up the phone and booking it, writing down what the offer is.
Right.
And so where's the effort to grow anything?
Yeah.
So there never was a cohesiveness there. And I was blowing up at the same time Mark was. And we were in Milan for a show season. And him and I ended up blowing off all our castings and drinking way too much coffee and talking out a business plan because we both had a shared vision. And we ended up farming somebody into the agency, and we started conglomerating our business together then we brought in Alex and a couple other guys under us and started using it as a group leverage.
That is so good because we talk about show business all the time. It's not and I go, you know what? And one of my great acting coaches taught me that a long time ago. Before I ever did my first commercial or my first voiceover, I was in this acting class. It was at OCC in Orange County. And, he started the class, this is show business. And he really focused a lot of the class on the business part of it, like how to get an agent, how to get a headshot, how to present yourself, what people are looking for. And like really sparked that. Like, oh,
It is.
now
It's
I know
show
what
business.
this is
I mean,
about.
I
It's
think
not just
that's-
about having
yeah.
a good headshot. You got to know the business too. So, what you're talking about, what you guys did, that's pretty groundbreaking at that time.
It was, and it was, I mean, again, a little bit of serendipity, the right people with the shared vision. But I mean, I think that that's applicable kind of across the board. And I certainly got bothered by the business because I wanted to do the show of it at different points. But the reality of life is, dude, all of us operate in our own needs. Right. We have to, I got to take care of mine. You got to take care of yours. And so nobody's against anyone. They're just taking care of their own. And that's what the business part of is. If you want success, you've got to be valuable to somebody else. Right. And that is not a sinister thing, although sometimes it feels like it.
No. And I think, because this podcast is really about also encouraging people to still continue to dream and chase dreams and all that. But what you're speaking to,
that's
and
our main mantra.
It's important.
Yeah, and that is important if you're going to chase your goals, to understand that one, you have to be of value. I think spiritually, add value. That's where you get a great return from the stuff you do.
Sure,
but there isn't anything sinister in. Everybody needs to get ahead. So if you want to get ahead, create an environment that helps others get ahead. Yeah. Like there was something that we were talking about, and I love the statement. Everybody, they got their friend who opens the restaurant, and everybody wants a discount. If that's your friend, you should go in there and pay double.
We just did that with our friend. She was playing at the Troubadour, the legendary Troubadour. And she could have given us tickets or whatever, but we went, no, we're going to buy tickets because we want to support that.
Yeah. And I mean, we're all trying to get, and
your friend, support.
And we're all in a state of need.
And it was like $20. It wasn't like, hey, we really need you to give us tickets. Like, we're going to go broke over $20. But it was really the idea that you got to support. But also, like, what you guys
support and self-generate.
But also, what you and Mark and all those guys created within that little getting together and saying, okay, now we're gonna, like negotiate. We're gonna like do the business part of this too. Is you were also paying it forward to these other guys that were coming behind you, because then now they saw this example of like, wow, okay, now we know what
it's the 4-minute mile. Once the 4-minute mile was broken, a lot of people.
I say that all the time. I use that.
Yeah, it's you set an example, or
people have to know, to know it's possible to. Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have. Again, we're going back to nobody learns in a vacuum. Right. And look, I've talked to you both about like writing this novel.
Yes.
Now I need to build up the business of it, right? Well, you do have to be wise and pick people that are worth being around, and that's its own journey and task to find the right voices to align with, and learn to what your voice.
We all need our teams, especially in these entertainment businesses.
But somebody's come before me, and so why not learn from the masters? Like there's a few people that I idolize. Instead of sitting there and going, I have nothing to learn, I'm great, let me go show you my greatness. Right. Like I just I'm about to take off to write the second draft of this novel. The first thing I did when I finished the first draft, there's this incredible fantasy writer that I am a huge fan of, Brandon Sanderson, and talk about generosity. He was a BYU creative writing teacher for years, and he put all of his lectures online for free. This is a rock star in the writing world right now. He could be like so many people
paying it forward.
Yeah, and his whole energy is so much that he's not trying to hoard his miserly wins.
How can I monetize all my smartness?
He is so lifting others up with his intentions and stuff. And so I went back and I did like 50 pages of notes on his lectures, and I'd watched him before. And it's not that I didn't know some of the stuff, but it sparked my imagination for this, that, the other.
Right.
And so everybody should go ahead and jump on the shoulders of giants and know that if you want, again, going back to it, if you want to create value in the world, you have to be of value to the world. And that's hard to do by yourself.
It is. It takes teams. We talk about it all the time.
What was y'all's business plan when you blew off the castings and you came together and got
Well, it was really just a sensibility that it didn't really seem that there was anybody advocating for the talent.
Right.
They were advocating for the agencies. And so what we did at the time, and now look, everybody's gone their own way, so I hope they're all doing great. But we were just young kids, and we were damn the status quo. And so we got a guy who was doing club promotion at the time because he was great at hustling and negotiating, and we got him a job at the agency. And then we started taking over from within.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then,
what agency was that, by the way?
It was Willamette in
in
New York, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, then we just started conglomerating things into our control. I eventually made it so I was like, I had agents in every city of the world. And I was like, if you want to do business with me, you have to go through him. Otherwise, I will go to another agency in your city, whether it's Milan or Paris or whatever. And we'll still share commissions with you, but if you want to do business with me, you have to go through us. And I had a few really good negotiation moments where it's like one of my favorite negotiations. I was listening to my agent at the time. He was in an argument with the guy, and they were arguing over a couple of $1,000s for like an $80,000 day.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, still a skateboard kid going, "Don't fuck this up for me, man." And they were arguing over travel expenses. And I was like, hang on a second. Put that on hold. I was like, what are you doing?
Right.
He's like, well, no way this should come out of your pocket. I was
Don't blow the deal over a minor detail.
Oh, no, bro. I ended up making more money on it. I was like, here's what you do, man. Go back to him, tell him we'll take care of everything. We'll book all the travels, the hotels, everything. But my rate is 90, not 80. The offset difference ended up like something like $3,000-4,000 more dollars.
Yeah.
And so, at that time, it was really just, there wasn't a lot of people advocating for the individual talent. And I found a group of people that we started really just trading, like, how do we support each other in our vision?
Yeah, no, that's so smart because also there's a lot of young up-and-coming designers that were on the scene that were kind of blowing things up and reinventing all these brands that are still to this day huge were fading at that time.
It was such a cool creative time.
Guys hadn't come along. One of them is I found an image of you. It's on the cut, the reel I cut, and it's you on the runway for Tom Ford.
His first show.
He blew Gucci out of the way. They were a
dying brand.
All of a sudden, Madonna's wearing it, and she was the biggest thing on the planet.
I did that one kind of as a favor, but that was also one of the things that we maintained in our
smartest
space.
move you ever did because.
I don't know. I mean, I've done a few other things.
No, I mean, as far as,
but that was one of the things because we had that
thing,
sensibility. Yeah. Like that was one of the things, at least I was really into. Was I loved the young up, like even with Dolce and Gabbana, when they were first coming up, I loved embracing the new artist, the new designer, and because it was a really interesting creative time. I think it's kind of going back to that now. I mean, I'm not that aware of the fashion world now, but. There was an amazing amount of creativity coming through the ethers.
Interesting how you not stumbled into, but how your timeline was perfect.
Yeah, you gotta be lucky, bro.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about before, where I was saying like now that era is widely regarded as one of the greatest eras in the modeling world. But it also was because the Tom Fords were coming up.
Dude, the stylists, the designers, the photographers, all of it. There was just a whole lot of creative talent conglomerating, and I got to stand in front. I didn't know you did Tom Ford's first show for Gucci. That's pretty. That was fun. Yeah, wow. I've got a picture somewhere because it was over my birthday. I remember it.
It might be on the reel.
We had to. This one's not. This is on the bus back. I'm tilting a bottle of wine down my gullet because it was a birthday I didn't get to have. I was still young. I think I was 24, and I was like, come on, man, I'm getting drunk now.
Having an iconic moment with Gucci and Tom Ford probably, it was okay to miss that birthday moment, to have that other.
I remember I think we did it down in Florence. We took a bus from Milan down to Florence. And so, look, man, it's easy to say you knew it was going to be an iconic moment. I didn't know. I was just doing a young designer. And
we had our friend Butch Walker on. He's now one of the greatest producers.
Jason is Butch.
I used to ride motorcycles
We
around
love
with her.
Butch. That's so cool.
Butch
It's
is an amazing
human
dude.
beings,
I've
first
been
and foremost.
Now I know him. I don't know him.
Okay, cool.
I've had the gift of getting to be drunk in his studio a couple times and watch
Which is
him
so
go.
fun.
That dude's a
Yeah.
masterful
Master,
genius
for sure.
Yeah, and
You know.
cool as hell.
That's
Just
why
a
he works
good
with
guy.
everybody from Taylor Swift to Train and Nashville artists. He works with every different genre, every different type of.
Well,
artists.
going back
Cool.
to screw the modeling and me. What we were talking about before. Talk about like a dude who just honors his voice and goes his route. Like,
Right.
Everybody will sing your praises once you're a giant.
All right, exactly.
Everybody will tell
reason
you
I brought
you're
that up
stupid
is-
and crazy until you get there.
Yeah. The reason I brought him up is because when we had him on, him and his band came from the small town. They got one of the last great deals, and this mega producer comes onto their project that they never could have imagined. This guy, a guy named Desmond Child, he made like Bon Jovi Superstars with Living on a Prayer.
Right.
And, like, he was a major guy. But in a way, that's what happened to you when you went to Paris. All of a sudden, you're doing Tom Ford's first show. You're with this trio of guys that become the solid group of, also, trailing a little bit.
I think
behind
that's
women,
really sweet of you, but I think
it's
Butch Walker's musical genius far outstrips my little bit of modeling success.
No, I think it's different worlds. So I think
It is.
they're equal, honestly, because you're not comparing apples to apples. That's music.
Well, but I also think the difference is if we're encapsulating this into the conversation. That was me taking advantage of opportunity at hand, not finding a person's passion to chase.
Right.
And there's merit in both, but really figuring out what your why is, why you're doing something, I think is where you're ultimately going to find your greatest success and happiness. And success is, we've gotten to a point where we hold success as a fiscal thing, a monetary thing, a have things thing.
Right.
Nobody's, you know this. You're creative. Like nobody's paying me to write this novel, but man, when I have a good writing day, I sleep good. I'm like, oh, I did something today. Like I'll get giddy in it. Also, I'll pull my hair out over it too. Like, when I don't, like, oh, damn, I can't figure this thing out.
Stuff that fills your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
gives you
You
substance.
get a great return on that.
It's super good. Yeah.
Fulfilled.
Totally. Like
And that's what a lot of people don't get.
we're not taught that.
The people stuck in there.
Well, and nothing against a 9-to-5. If that's your comfortable space, I get it. But we are not given a lot of permission, encouragement, or roadmap to following our own path. That's just, when you look at the institutionalization of society, whether it's, schools are like prisons. You go in there and be a good little prisoner and go to on the bell, The door's open, you're released from your cell, go to the next
your
cell.
routine.
You get a recess.
Yes. Yeah, you get to go out and exercise in the yard and don't get shivved. In some schools, that's probably true.
Not to impugn all teachers, but
I'm not impugning the teachers,
No.
but the indoctrination of
Exactly. But I know what you're speaking to because it's like it's become a little too routine the way they teach children, the way they
By design, not by accident.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think so. No, I'm not impugning. I think teachers are unsung heroes.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
talking
no,
about
no.
people who go into a very noble profession under resourced,
Yeah.
and most of them knowing that they're going to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, no.
We need, God bless a good teacher. And
your
we all need
photography
them.
guy, the guy
Yeah.
who said,
Oh,
"You're
man.
gonna be my TA," and you got an A, and you said, "I learned more from that guy because he."
Gave me true mentorship.
Let me
He
off
didn't
the
try
leash.
he didn't try and shove me into
But
the
I think that's what
curriculum.
we were speaking to. We weren't speaking about
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
downside of anything. We were just saying, let these kids off the leash a little bit.
Hey,
Absolutely. Leave those kids alone.
Leave those kids alone.
Yeah, apparently it's not a new problem.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, no, it's a historical problem for sure.
Yeah, that's look. That is a struggle, I think, for any of us.
Yeah.
Because we all, and Snods and I had talked about this a handful of times. That I think there's intrinsic value and extrinsic value. So, you have your internal worth and you have your external worth. And I think you need both.
Absolutely.
It's impossible. We're meant to be societal creatures. It's impossible to exist in a vacuum. I mean, some people are more monastic than others and can sit in their little hole. But if you're not given good guidance to what that extrinsic value is, it's very hard to find it. So we need good mentorship.
Yeah.
I kind of lost my point there. Truth be told.
That's good. No, because everything we're speaking to is
external.
Yeah. Yeah.
I made it look like I knew what I was talking about, but I lost where I was going.
Until you voiced it, you had it, bro. You finessed it so
no, this
good.
is not my first time bullshitting in front of a microphone.
Well, of course, we can't let you get away with without talking about your acting career, because I didn't realize you were like on Beverly Hills 90210. You were on another series. You did all these really cool little bits and pieces along the way before you got to the Sex and the City thing. And I thought that was a really interesting part of your story too, because, did you have designs on being an actor, or did that happen once you became a
No,
model,
again, a
or?
serendipity. And so, one of the things we were talking about pre-cast is knowing your intention, and we brought that up a few times, or
Right.
it finding you. So
Yeah.
I grew up with I've had a few epiphany moments in my life where I feel like I've stepped out of myself and had such clarity on the next step. Now I wish I'd had more of those, because some days you're just like, where the hell am I going and what am I doing?
I'm right there with you. I wish I'd have known sooner. I when I look back at some of the points in my life, I go, damn, I wish I'd have known sooner.
But we're all on our own journey, and
That's right.
it's never too late to become whoever you want to be. I mean, until you're dead, and then it's too late.
100%.
But here I'm at a later stage of, I want to be a novelist, right? Who the fuck am I to think? Can we cuss on the show? I just did. Okay, good.
We can.
Who the fuck am I to think I can do that is a question I think a lot of us ask, and who but you's gonna do it. So, no, the acting, even of itself, it was a bit of a means to an end. I had no intentions or designs. I was on the cover of some magazines.
Right.
And Bob Conrad gave me my first acting gig. Robert Conrad, Wild Wild West. For your audience now, no one's going to remember, but he's just big chip on his shoulder type guy. And what occurred to me from it was, oh wow, this is like storytelling.
Right.
And I was so busy making money hand over fist, it was very hard to stop modeling to do that, but it was fun.
Right.
And I do think it's a struggle. Obviously I'm pretty articulate, but articulation of ourselves isn't just a bunch of words coming out of your mouth. It's trying to figure out what your purpose is, where your existence is, and you've been
what
given
the intention is.
Yeah,
as we spoke
and you've
about.
been given so many stories from society, from your family, from your friends, from the group of kids you grow up around, of what you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to do it, before you ever get a chance to discover that for yourself, And so here I am. I literally fell into my first acting gig. Now I'm doing theater classes, and I'm in. What hit me and occurred to me, I remember it, I was walking down Broadway taking a ride onto Prince in New York City, in Soho. And I was like, well, this just feels good. And I was trying to make sense of it for myself. Like, what do I do now? And I heard a voice in my head that said, well, you can, tell stories after you've had a career. And I was like, wait, that is not my voice. That is something that has been told to me. And my foot missed the ground when I had that realization. My next step didn't touch the earth. And I was like, whoa, I'm having a weird feeling. And I walked away from the money I was making it's kind of pissed the guys off I was making money with. But I knew that I wanted to be a storyteller. But even that, at this point, like, acting was like what I'm doing now. Right. I wish I had started 30 years ago. I've been writing for 30 years, but I've always hidden it in drawers.
Yeah.
Now, it was good because it gave me some acumen to
Well, Snotty told me a story about how you were writing when you were a little kid, too, and almost discouraged to do that.
Yeah,
in a way.
I unfortunately grew up in a place where it was like creative pursuit is a silly waste of time.
Right, yeah.
But that was my greatest passion. Like, I had a friend recently, he's like, oh, dude, you your face was always buried in a book. Like you would be walking with us and you had a book up. And
That's going to be such a cool thing for this audience to hear, that you were such a bookworm, because now you're the face of all these cultural moments and all this stuff, and you're a really humble guy, which I love that about you.
Thanks.
Very self-deprecating, but you can't minimize the great iconic things that you were a part of. One of them being Sex and the City, because when I was doing my research, I'm finding out that there's a whole new audience 20 years later that is going back to the original show, watching it. There's huge fan clubs and a huge fan base for all
Good
the
writing.
characters. Yeah, and it's widely regarded as one of the premiere shows that changed the face of the TV landscape.
hugely so.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I remember even because you're too young for this, Nods, but I remember when it was coming out. I was thriving in New York City, and it was like, wow. I wonder if this for young female leads, Hollywood and television doesn't really allow for this.
Right.
I wonder if this will fly, and it flew.
It
flew
big
really,
time.
yeah.
Again, in pop culture, media culture, it's still regarded as one of those
That's also
landmark show, which not everybody gets to be on that kind of a show. So,
no, that was a real
and
gift.
again, you're a humble guy and you're very self-deprecating, but I'm going to cheerlead for you a little bit, because you go from being this angry kid in San Diego, and then you end up in Paris, and then you're smart enough to get your business shit together, and you have this mega career with Avedon, Tom Ford, all these iconic moments in the iconic era of modeling, and then all of a sudden here you are, Sex in the City, and which is another iconic, but in the acting area. So, give yourself some credit, because whatever you were doing was leading you to all these cool moments.
I've definitely always had something about me that is willing to burn the ships, to use your phrase earlier, to go, look, I've come to a new awareness of who I am, and I'm willing
There's
to.
no going back.
Yeah, there isn't. I'm like, how could I deny this now that I understand this? And so I've got to lean in. So that was kind of, I'd burned the ships with the income.
thing.
Yeah, I just burned it. I was like, I can't be both things. And so there was actually quite a gap of time before I got the success. Everybody thinks, you get it. You just, there was years before that came
Well,
around.
and that's what I was speaking to, all the little things that you did
Yeah.
before Sex and the City. But I wanted to ask you about that audition process, because I did commercials and voiceover and bit parts for many, many years, and had really great top agents in LA. And, that process of interviewing and how you capture a role, people like to hear about that. So I'd be interested.
You mean
to
the
hear
audition
how that
process in general, or
how the
Sex and the City
Yeah, how it
specifically?
came in, how the Sex and the City thing came in.
I think more interesting than that, didn't you just go off grid for a while before that?
Yeah, I did. So
Camping trip or something?
yeah, I was trying to figure out what I was doing. What ended me up back in New York. I'd sold my place here. I'd come out of a dysfunctional relationship, and I was like, what am I? Who should I be? I didn't know it was going to be 4 months, but I put the dogs in the truck, and we spent 4 months across the U.S. just kind of bouncing. Went up through Canada for a little bit, and then landed in New York and
That's
started
a good
getting
way
back
to clear
into
your head too. When you're really kind of
Dude, when
trying to
you-
reimagine what it's going to be
Yeah.
going forward. You sometimes got to
get out of conversations,
That's right.
and you can hear the loud voices in your head that shouldn't be there anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're in that position of defending it. So, again, serendipity. I think that you need a little serendipity, but you also got to be showing up.
Right.
So I'd gone back to New York. I was like, you know what, I'm going to land. And I went down to New York for, I think the first civilized place I'd seen in like 3 months was Montreal.
Oh, wow.
Went up to Montreal, spent some nights there, partied my butt off, and then I was like, you know what, I think the trip's over. And
I bet you thrived in Montreal with your French.
I had, I was young and
Do
I
you
had
speak
fun.
French?
Ouais, c'est perdu parce que j'habitais dans les États-Unis et personne qui parle une autre langue, mais j'habitais à Paris presque
Damn it!
3
Now
ans.
that Yeah, this is why you still have a great audience. Not only is he supermodel, iconic actor, but he speaks French and plays guitar and surfs.
That's something I'd like to get into, and we'll do that after I make this point. But just to finish with, the audition process, but I'd love to get into talking about life by design because that's something I'm trying to do right now.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that
because-
theory of life.
Yeah.
You know.
So I ended up, I was down in New York just doing theater class stuff, and it was a blizzard. A few serendipities, but the bookworm's about to come back in.
Okay.
I literally think it was the bookworm that got me the job. It had been a gnarly blizzard. I was fed up. I flew down to Costa Rica. Like, I went to dinner with a friend one night, and we couldn't get back, and we were so frozen by the time we got back to his apartment because there was 0 cabs, and we had to walk like 20 blocks through just like
that sucks. I've
like
been in
through
New York
14, you know,
where the wind is whistling in between
Yeah,
the buildings,
and
and it's like.
And I was so fed up. I was like, I'm going to Costa Rica. And he was like, really? I was like, yes.
F this, I'm out.
And I got on his computer and I booked a ticket right then. And he was like, can I come? I was like, yeah, let's go. And so I'd been down there. I was tan. I'd run into like this traveling.
Your hair was long again.
Yeah, I was all like in my Zen space. I'd run into this like group of gymnasts that were practicing, spending their summer down there practicing. So I was like on trapeze.
Oh, that's
cool. It was. I'm in this completely like, oh, laugh is lovely type of, which was kind of the character.
Right.
But honestly, I think the tipping point, there is this funny ass scene where I'm supposed to be doing a play and I do the full Monty in it, right?
Right.
And I went in for the audition. I had to do that as one of the
Okay,
scenes.
wait, let's back it up a little bit. So you're down in Costa Rica, your phone rings, and they go
a
get your
friend
ass
who
back
was a
here.
manager said, hey, I've got an audition for you. They've been looking for this guy and they can't find him. And I said, okay, I'm here. I just got back. I'm ready. Send me this material. And so I went in and I did the audition, and I got to that scene, this scene where I'm supposed to be in this play and going full naked, and it was written comedy as far as I could see it, and so I played it with a comedic sort of bent.
Right.
And the director, this man was incredible. This man is incredible. Michael Patrick King. He was the main creative force behind that. Even though like Darren
he
Star,
wrote and directed it, right?
he took over around, I think, season 1 and pretty much wrote and directed. Like I call that dude Batman when he was there. I was so impressed with his just acumen and passion.
Wow.
And he says,
So you
no.
played it a little comically.
So I played a little comically. And he's like, no. I want this a little more austere. And he started describing it. And I was like, you mean like a Pittner play? And he went, that's exactly what I'm fucking talking about. And I think it's the fact I was a geek. I'm sitting there doing theater.
so
I would go
good.
to every matinee on Broadway I could get my hands on. I went through all of Shakespeare's works with the lexicon dictionary so I could understand it with context. I mean, I did my work. And so I think it was just that little bit of understanding of what he was trying to do that got me the call back.
Right.
And then I survived. So
Yeah, no. Yeah. And
that said, I mean, I still...
You more than survived. You crushed it on that one as well.
A little good editing
Well, no,
helps,
because
too.
wait, I'm going to read you some quotes right now because I do my research. It says, it says, you became one of the iconic characters from the show along with Kim Cattrall as Samantha. And there are big debates on why Samantha is actually the show's main character. Because even though the Carrie Bradshaw character is the main character, she ended up stealing that show in so many ways. So there's these debates culturally, like who was the main character? Was it Samantha or was it Carrie? But you and your storyline with Samantha became these iconic centerpiece of the show.
Well, again, I've said it a couple times, just good writing.
Right.
Michael Patrick understood.
And there was Carrie and Big too. You know,
Yeah, no.
It's not like you guys were the only.
Good storytelling, in my opinion, is entertaining and imparts a message. Now, this second part, the imparting a message,
Right.
is the harder thing.
Right.
Especially because nobody came to your movie to get lectured.
That's
True. That's what documentaries are for.
They want to be entertained.
Yes, and so I think he was just
They want to be
craft
moved.
of all of those
They
writers.
want to be all those things. Yeah.
They knew how to entertain, move you,
right.
while imparting the message. And I think if you're to answer that, I'm not sure that.
Well, that's a debate that
yeah,
people have.
it's a debate.
That has
but
nothing to do with you. But
why that would even be a debate is you got to look at the times and what was allowed for women and who their identity was supposed to be.
And definitely the Samantha character storyline was
Cut across
pushing all
across all the boundaries of what a woman was supposed to be at that time. Gave a lot of license empowerment to just be like, look, I got desires just like you. Let me do it. But at the same time, like one of my favorite episodes of that show is because she is so incapable of having the deeper relationship is when she gets sick and her curtains fall down and there's nobody there for her. And so, they played on real human values, as entertaining as that was all the time.
But and you hit the nail on the head when you said good writing, because now you're writing this epic thing. And I have no doubt it's going to be your amazing next chapter, from my mouth to God's ears. But but that was a really cool thing that also, so one of the last quotes, because some of the big critics just fell in love with that show. So it was so critically acclaimed too, because critics sometimes some of the greatest things that we love, the critics trashed it at first, but now they're legacy things. But everybody got it wrong. But with this show, it was just everybody was all in. The critics and everybody loved it. It was huge,
absolutely.
It
was a gift to be a part of.
One of the critics said, "Watching Samantha and Smith grow together as a couple is one of the most pleasing parts of any of the women's long-term romantic storylines on Sex and the City." So that's pretty cool, bro. And that's you. Give yourself some credit. More
that's
credit.
the writers.
But chasing the dream too. But it's also chasing the dream, which you did. You went and cleared your head. You went to Costa Rica. You came back sun-kissed. You get the phone call.
Funny, I didn't even think about that because that's what I'm doing right now.
Right.
I didn't think that I was in Costa Rica then.
Back to Costa Rica.
I'm going to Costa Rica in a week. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some good mojos.
I suppose there. The universe is send you back into the womb.
There's some little
It's time for a rebirth.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Again.
But yeah, no, there's that's a pretty big thing, because this show is one of those shows that's lasting and has legs, as they say in the business, and that's a pretty lucky thing.
I think that
a lot of luck involved too, but it's
for sure. But the heart that they put into it, good storytelling is universal and lasts because it speaks to the human condition.
Right.
Like all of us are just trying to figure it out,
That's
man.
right.
And you think you get one footing, and all of a sudden you've got to go a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And the hardest thing in the world, I think, to be is a human being. It's easy to be the animal. It can be.
And also, just on that bit a little bit more, Kim Cattrall was in her prime, because she was another actress who kind of bubbled under for the longest time in her career.
Yep.
She did a lot of movies, but she was never
she crushed that.
She was never the Sharon Stone or that, she bubbled under for a while, and then all of a sudden this character was so right for her.
When I think about her, it comes to mind.
What's that?
Porky's.
Oh, he remembers her from Porky's. Did you guys have a good experience working together? I'm sure you did, because the chemistry was really good.
Yeah, I mean it was cool.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed the entire environment that I worked in.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite stories.
A lot of creative, amazing, top people.
One of my favorite stories is not actually about her, but it's about Sarah Jessica Parker. Now, my first day, and it's my first day on set.
Right.
It was this scene where I'm being objectified by all the women. They're establishing I'm the hot guy. And so literally I'm like...
Is that the restaurant scene?
Yes. I'm getting my butt pinched and everything. And it's all happening. But there's this intense amount of focus on me. And I know the stakes of what I am. And, I'm so nervous at one point. Michael Patrick came over to me. He's like, "You're doing great. If you could just stand still, I could film you." And so, it's a height.
Was there some nerves going on?
Or for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so we break for lunch, and it was like a family. I mean, I came in after the show had been
you were
established.
on the final season, right?
Yeah. Final 2 years.
Yeah, the final 2 seasons, yeah.
So the the crew all knew each other, the actors,
Yes.
everybody. This was a
And
conglomeration.
anybody who's ever worked on a
So I-
long-term project knows you become a family. It's the same sound
Felt like
guy,
I
it's the
was
same
going to-
cinematographer,
yeah.
It's the same crew every year.
Absolutely.
And you live your lives together for all those years,
So it's like going to a new school.
Right.
And literally across the street from the restaurant set that we were at was where they were holding lunch at a high school cafeteria
Oh, how
that they
funny.
had booked out.
The crew lunch was in the high school cafeteria across the street.
And
That's
so
a
I
good-
literally in this feeling of being at a new school, and I got to go to the lunchroom.
Yeah.
And there's a thing in production
That's
where
kinda funny.
it really was, and like there's a thing in production where you put your principal players through first in eating because you want to get them back onto set first.
Right.
And so you need to get your actors through, your director, et cetera, so that then they can get back on into makeup and
Right.
set and get production rolling again. And I get into line, and a production assistant, I got the nerves, and a production assistant, he pulls me out because he thinks I'm an extra. He doesn't recognize me and as part of the crew yet. And I kind of just like, okay. And I was like, wait a second. No, I gotta get through. And so I got back in line and explained to him who I was. But then I got through that line, and I got my food, and I got my food tray, and I realized there's this sea of those like blue fiberglass lunch bench things.
Right. The
and
old school
Yeah.
yes. And I'm like,
cafeteria,
oh
high
shit,
school
I don't
table.
know anybody here, and I don't
First
know
day
where
of
to
school, I'm a
sit.
new
How
kid.
funny.
And Sarah Jessica saw my awkwardness and got up and ran over and pulled me over and sat me down with her. And
Oh,
the
that's so
others.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a great.
And that's cool because I think that's part of why those shows become so great. There's got to be chemistry, and I think that's probably something she understood. Like, I need to make
She
sure
was
he knows he's a part
amazing.
of this.
Talk
And
about-
that's
talk
a pretty
about
generous
a
thing. For
generous
the star of a show
businesswoman.
to
Yeah,
do.
she was great.
That's so cool.
Incredibly powerful, incredibly generous person. Yeah, I enjoyed her.
Well, that's so cool. Wow. And now on to the writing of your new book. So you're going to take off pretty soon.
Talking about
We want to get that
living
into
life by
because we know.
design.
Yeah. Well, that's So yeah, let's talk about living life by design. I mean,
The author of your own story.
yeah, which I'm trying to be, the author of my own story, authoring a story. I think a great idea of it, if you want to quit eating sugar, get sugar out of your house, right? It's a lot harder to keep willpower in place than to set yourself up for success. So if I've got, I don't really have a sugar problem, but I'm just using it because I think it's an understandable one. So if I'm trying not to eat sugar and I've got to constantly tell myself not to go to the cupboard to eat it, that's a challenge and a struggle. But if there's no sugar in the cupboard, those thoughts aren't occurring. And so I'm going down to Costa Rica to write the second draft of this novel because I want to force myself into an isolated space of sort of loneliness where I don't have anything else to distract me. And also I want to get fluent in Spanish and surf. I'm gonna be,
So he will be
Three minutes
fluent
of
in
birds.
French and Spanish, and he surfs and plays guitar, and is a
play crappy
novelist.
guitar.
It's good.
So
bro.
yeah,
You're very well rounded. I like it.
So that's the idea of going down there, is to create an environment within which to thrive and have to thrive. Because, writing, I've been so distracted by things of life right now that I haven't had the time and opportunity to really focus for the last few months. And writing, like anything, it's musculature. I mean, if I haven't surfed for a while,
Right.
I'm not going to surf at the same level if you haven't skied, snowboarded.
Right.
And so, when I had finished this draft, I was probably writing around 3,000 to 4,000 words a day and sitting for a good 4 to 6 hours solid.
Right. Yeah.
I'll be lucky if I get a half hour of tolerance and focus in it first.
So too much distraction.
So I really am trying to create an environment where I have nothing to do but thrive.
Right.
I'm like, okay, cool.
Life by design. It's
Life by design.
It's smart, really. Set yourself up where you can, there's no choice but to focus.
Yes.
Nothing. Like
So
you
I'm
said,
purposely
nothing's the
going
struggle
to
going
a small place, not a super developed place, and it's going to be dirt roads. I just a friend, a real nice serendipity is I was thinking of Nicaragua,
Right.
and a friend of mine is like, well, me and my sister, we set up this artist residency down there. I was like, I don't want to stay at artist. He's like, no. I got a little apartment in a town about 20 minutes from there that's yours. And I was like, oh,
Perfect.
dude, it's small. I want to be small right now.
Don't you love when the universe brings that shit in like that?
Bro.
That's when you know it's meant to be. You kind of go, okay.
Motorcycle to get around.
Everything's going to be
He
okay.
He just told me he's got a motorcycle down there. He's like, I know you ride.
That's so cool.
So I just bought some dirt bike boots and some knee pads and elbow pads, and I'm going to take a couple of helmets that I got.
You packed up everything here in LA, and it's all where it's...
I'm going to be this white kid down in
like
Tico land with
I don't think
dirt
you're
bike
gonna be
boots
the
and
only
board shorts.
Yeah.
I do not think you're going to be the only one, because a lot of my friends that are rad surfers and traveling guys, everybody's on Costa Rica right now.
Costa Rica is wonderful. I've been going there for...
Because he wants to be...
Yeah, no, where I'm going. So, yeah, the Nicoya coast, the north, has gotten super developed, and it's kind of created a little bit of a have and have not situation, which is kind of screws. I love the Costa Ricans. What a beautiful culture of people. Generous.
No, I hear great
amazing.
Things, and my buddies.
But yeah,
I'm
purposely hoping to be
love
the
it
only
there.
white guy around. I mean, I don't really. I'm not looking to build a big network of friends and stuff down there. I want to be forced into the same thing.
Right.
I've been studying Spanish for a while, but there's nothing like immersion. So I want to be forced into having to speak it to get by.
Yeah, that'll be good.
And we're going into the life by design to embrace your discomfort. On my own, like I study 15 to 20 minutes every morning. And there's some mornings like this morning.
By the way, people forget that English is rooted in Latin as well. So Spanish is one of the easiest languages for English-speaking people to learn.
Well, and
because
apparently
there's so many similarities.
There's a few people who speak it in this country, and very few speak French. So I've been watching my French atrophy for years. I'm like, well, why? That's what started me on the Spanish side. I was like, why don't you pick up Spanish? Dude?
They say it's never too late. French is something I would like to learn how to speak.
It's never too late to do anything.
They have so many cool apps now too that you can really.
Oh yeah, fantastic
make it
apps.
so easy.
I'm not going to advertise
not easy.
For
I don't think
but
French would be easy.
No, dude, that's what I've been learning on.
Wow, really?
Every morning, I made it again life by design.
Perfect.
Every morning I have like a 20-step process I go through that just starts my day, and I even include like taking I took this from workflow people that I looked up and studied because I am ADHD,
right? Yeah.
And so I wake up, I have this routine that includes 15 to 20 minutes of studying my Spanish. Otherwise, I would never get it done. Right. And now I'm on like day 380, 390 something. And it's just 15, 20 minutes a day, but that consistency's added up. Whereas if I was trying to like make it part of my day,
right,
I'd have maybe gotten 50 days in.
Right.
So,
No, it's good.
Yeah.
But it also speaks to self-discipline, which it always takes a bit of self-discipline to tackle.
Again, life by design.
Right.
Like, I'm not that disciplined, so I create an environment that disciplines me.
Right. Can we talk a little bit, because we got to wrap it up fairly shortly here, but let's talk a little bit about the subject matter of it, if you want to.
Oh, absolutely. I'm
fascinated by that. Snotty told me a little bit about it. But
I've set out to make 3 trilogies that span different millennia. It's on it's big epic fantasy, same world, different timelines. It definitely has a magic magic system I've created that's kind of based in physics. And I'm starting with the ending trilogy because I'm a glutton for punishment.
Although there is a theory, if you get the end down, if you know what the end is, then it kind of...
Of any story you do want to write an ending, but in terms of my world building, I have to be responsible for things that are going in the first novel.
Right,
and I'm like,
true. You gotta have a...
What does this mean? And so I'm having to do a lot of extra
This has to have a through line to the next 9 books. Yeah, I get it.
The first trilogy, and all of them are going to kind of deal with, power and what that means in a very simple way. The first trilogy is very much isolated into awakening. The working titles of the 3 books is, the awakening, realization, and transcendence. And so the first one's going to be somebody who is very downtrodden, my fated hero. She is very angry at her circumstances and wants power, wants a different set of circumstances for herself. And she's going to kind of get what she wants, but it's going to come with a different understanding of what that means.
I'm hooked already, honestly, just from that little synopsis. It's good. It sounds really good.
And, she's going to end up being superpowered. There's going to be magic and stuff to keep us entertained. But
Yes.
that is the lesson I'm hoping to impart. And then going into the second one, she's going to be involved in creating a rebellion against the tyrant that she is kind of associated with. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, no. You don't
although
have to
it's
give all the
probably
way.
years from it.
But just for our audience, I'm
And then when
fascinated
she has that power,
about your new
she's going to be
chapter.
challenged in the third one and against the person. So I start my story on a half-dead planet or a half-dead floating chunk of planet and something I call the boundless. The universe has been uncreated in the middle trilogies between my big bad and my big good there. And I will bring my big bad from book 6 into book 9 to be the big force to challenge. And they will have a fight that ends up recreating the universe if I do my work right.
Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot.
I can't wait for the movie adaptation.
I can't
Have
either.
you- I know, right?
That means I sold the damn thing.
Because you're sitting there, you're telling that, and I'm thinking, has Jason ever directed? Have you ever directed anything? Because I feel like that could be in your future.
I
could
definitely
see
would
you
love to
directing.
direct.
I could see you directing.
I visually, I love it. I've definitely done a handful of projects. Again, I'm getting over this.
Right.
Don't be afraid to. You got to put your work out there.
Right.
So I literally directed a 35 millimeter film back in the day that I hustled my ass off to do it. And I was
Right.
like, I could have wrote that better, and I buried it.
Damn it.
No,
But now you got to own it a bit.
I think.
is what you're
I think
saying.
yes. I think
Because it's
there's.
part
I think
of-
there's a medium between waiting, a middle ground rather, between waiting and perfection. You
Right.
know, like
Yeah.
it's better to get out the gates, stumble, fall on your face, and then pick yourself back up and do it again,
Right.
than to constantly be seeking perfection. But at the same token, don't just go out there and flounder and
Right.
put no,
Real preparation
energy into
or-
craft and
right.
preparation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a middle ground that I'm trying to like. I'm learning to get out of. That's why you see, like, are you okay to talk about the writing? I'm
Yeah,
really trying to learn to
Well,
get
'cause
out
I
of
know
the
I'm
little artist tower and hiding in my head.
Right, because we're creatives as well, and I know sometimes when you're creating, you don't really want to speak too much about it. You kind of want to let it do the work and then let it speak for itself. So that's why I was asking you if you were comfortable to just
Yeah,
give us a little tidbit. But it was a good tidbit, and that's a great cliffhanger
it's,
right there.
It's a 700-page novel right now. I mean,
That's amazing, bro. 700 pages is 700 pages, especially when it's
the
good
weight of
writing.
it. But I'm learning that it's really done better in community. I've had some really good in the last months connections. An old friend that I actually knew from snowboarding, hellisboarding, and
who was
kite
also a
surfing.
writer.
She reached out to me on Instagram, and she was just about to publish another book, and so
Wow,
I kind of
cool, yeah.
started talking with her, and I through her and a few other people, I found myself to an editor right now, who I'm so looking. So that's what a motivation, because now I'm not a creative in a bubble. I did the vetting. I made sure, checking what feedback are you going to actually give me? What's the value of conversation here? But now I'm super encouraged because I'm going down to isolate myself to write this, to hand to this other person.
It's good. The goal is set.
And get
There
their
is
feedback. Yeah.
There is an end game there, which
Yeah.
which helps with the motivation factor too.
Yeah, you gotta. It's good to be in the bubble, but you also got to learn to get the hell out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Wow.
In conclusion, what would you say to anybody that's listening, chasing the dream, be it an author, a model, actor, whatever dream you're chasing?
I think that
What advice?
one of the things we brought in earlier, everybody operates in their own needs, and I think if you're trying to figure out what your dream is, it's great to have outside voices to help you there, but do not be stuck on those voices, because everybody operates in their own needs, and everybody's going to have advice, but whether or not that advice is truly applicable to your individual journey and dream is solely up to you. And too often, other people's needs, interests, and wants and desires get involved in the advice and help they're giving you. So if you don't create a clear vision of what it is your why is, it's not going to come from some outside source. So you really got to focus on that and trust and believe in your own voice and develop that voice to
I think
trace
that's
it.
really, really great advice, but so perfect for this moment where a lot of people that are chasing the dreams, it's a different dynamic now with the way everything's set up with social media and just all these other factors. So I think that's really
Yeah, we're
wise
in a very
advice.
like, hey, check me out, external value world, and if you don't know your
and
internal
you're like,
value,
you got to figure out what your
likes,
why
likes,
is.
likes, likes,
Yeah.
likes,
How
likes.
many followers you got, bro?
Right. Which is the external.
Which is important,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
like
it is.
I'd like to
Absolutely.
raise up
Part
my
of the
social
game.
media profile so
Yeah.
I have a better chance of publishing this
Yeah,
novel.
absolutely.
But
It's part of the
it's
business.
that sign above my computer that, you know, a good novel, a good story well told helps let us. That's my driving interest. That's what keeps it. It's what makes it spiritually rewarding at the end of the day, and not just business oriented. It's staying in that creative space, because that's why I fell in love with stories.
Right.
And so there's my why,
Right.
written right above my computer. I'm doing this because if I can put a drop back in the bucket that I took from, and have some other kid go, oh, I understand my world a little bit better, and that was fun,
Yeah.
then I've done something that was
ripple
gifted
effect.
to me.
All right. And it's what we speak to, bringing value.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you know, if you want to bring value, then you have to, you know.
You gotta find where your value is.
Exactly. Thank you so much for
Dude, what a
coming on
pleasure.
today, Jason.
Thanks for
It's
letting me
been
blah,
so
blah, blah, blah,
great.
blah.
Yeah,
Thanks
no,
for being
listen,
with us, brother.
we love doing this, and you know, as you know, Snotty came up with this concept, but I think it's really great because when he first pitched it to me, and he says, you know, we tell these stories all the time, and people love to hear these stories, and they really do. They really do.
Man,
and it encourages people. It really does.
I think it's
And
so important because, you know, like, there's this guy I've been listening to his podcasts in the morning. Part of my routine is I in the morning I do a meditation, and I've kind of introduced this into it too, because it's just little positive motivational stories that the guy tells. We need constant readjustment to our navigation. We do.
Exactly.
You know, when you got to, and we need these constant affirmations. So there's always room and space for it. It's the same reason when he brought this up, I wanted to do it. I was like, oh, participate in talking positivity into the life?
Yeah.
Great. I'd love to participate in talking positivity in life, because we're always all of it. You know, I struggle with my down days.
Yeah.
Right.
There's times where I need an outside source going, hey, maybe you could think about it this way. So good for both of you.
Perspective.
No,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also, you know, the Jason Lewis story is a good story. So we're excited to hear the next chapter. We'll have you back on after.
Yeah.
Let me get this sucker published, and let's talk.
Yeah, this is only the beginning.
I hope
It
so.
is.
Yeah, brother.
Thank you everybody for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
Happy
you,
New Year.
Snotty, Jason. Many more episodes to come, and keep subscribing, liking, and listening.
Because these
Until
guys
next
are
time.
awesome. It's
Oh,
only going
thank
to
you.
get
I
better from
appreciate
here.
that.
We're out.
All right.
Nice, yo.
Oh, that was so good, Jay.
Nice, man.
Super
Thank you,
good.
guys.
You know, and that's how we want it to be. We want it to like we're hanging out with our friends. Because you're a friend, and that's how all our guests are. Even if we don't know them.
think that's one of the things.